One second. Yeah, it started recording.
Perfect. Welcome everybody to the first Global Board of Directors meeting of 2020. Happy New Year, everybody, and hope you all had a great break. So to start things off, I'd just like to welcome Grant and Vandana to the board, who were voted in for starting their 2-year term from January this year. Don't think Vandana's on the call though, is she?
She should be. I gave her a call earlier in the morning.
Okay, yeah, I think it's really, really late for her, so we need to
No,
actually
she's
work
in
out.
AppSec Cali as well.
Oh yeah?
So yeah, she's in the same. Yeah, she's going to be in
Oh, she's
AppSec.
at Kelly.
Yeah, she's at Cali. So should
Oh, yeah,
be in
better.
the same time zone as Richard. So actually, it should be her morning technically.
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure. So, um, from the present from the board, just let me. This is going to be annoying. So myself on Pendlebury, Grant Ungers, Sharif Mansour, Gary Robinson, Richard as Apta Kali, and do I have anybody? Did I miss anybody?
So we're
No,
out of Martin and Vandana.
yeah, so Martin and Vandana aren't here
Quickly
yet.
find
Martin's
your-
running 10 minutes late. To start off the board meeting, so typically what we would have done in the past is had a pre first board meeting to kind of get to know each other and talk about strategy and stuff like that, and set out roles. So as the roles haven't been decided and we haven't talked about them, we'll stick with last year's roles until we have had a vote. So let's call the order. There's no changes to the agenda, I would assume. So the approval, we'll go for the approval of December board meeting minutes. So has everybody had a chance to read them?
I did.
Yeah. I guess the motion is to approve the December board meeting minutes. Can I have a second?
Second the motion.
Perfect. So just from where I can see, so Grant, just so you know, this is a process. It's just you just say yes or no or abstain from approving. Does that make sense? Grant? Can everybody hear me?
I can, sorry. I was muted, apologies.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, I approve.
Okay. Sharif?
Yeah, I approve.
Gary?
Yes.
Is this?
This is Richard. I approve.
Perfect. Thanks, Richard. I see somebody's forehead. I got confused. Sorry. And I approve. Sorry, Donna, it was you. Perfect. So that's the board meeting minutes. Look the same. All right. So Mike, are you in a position to go through the report?
Yeah, so I have two, so you don't need to, before you scroll down. So what I've done is I separate everything into these kind of KPIs and then kind of a longer narrative. Don't scroll, you just scrolled. So the KPIs, basically membership is flat from the previous month. The website is, again, I mean, basically all the key metrics are flat from month to month, and also year to year in terms of like website traffic. We did see a slight dip in non-funding tickets. So we have two paths for tickets. And we have actually stayed pretty consistent on the SLA for the service desk, which is like, paying bills and reimbursing people. The queue that's got hammered pretty bad this last month is the non-funding ticket. And a large majority of those, by the way, that are falling out of SLA is really just kind of a capacity problem. Harold's got a lot of tickets over there around graduating projects and such. And We obviously were focused on the website launch these last, well, several months, but even more so these last couple of weeks. You don't need to scroll. I mean, if you want to, the executive director report, I've already sent to all the board members, and there's been some discussions about those. The top line items on that, of course, is the fact that we did launch the website. That's down at the very, very bottom. If you go all the way down. So the website has been launched, as you probably know. We still have some outstanding chapters and projects that haven't done any of the work on their site. Harold and I made the decision to give chapters and projects another full week, or another 2 weeks, I'm sorry, to get their projects together and decided to move forward. Just based upon the fact that if we waited for every chapter and every project, we would never launch this website, was the logic. So that's all been going. The traffic since launch has stayed pretty constant. We took the 80-20 approach on redirects because the number of redirects for SEO was quite extensive, and we're tracking to kind of what we were expecting right now in terms of traffic going to the old site versus to the new site. And that's an ongoing project that we will just keep whack-a-moling away at that big long list. We are, doing some fast follow features on how membership's working. We might have found a bug this morning. Harold's troubleshooting that today, but we have been successful at taking memberships and also donations on the new website. So we know that it is functional. And we will be retiring the old ones once we know everything is cool.
Yeah, I think there's a few links on the new websites that are dead.
Yeah, there's probably, if you find any of those, report them as tickets in GitHub or send us a mail. Well, again, I mean, this is just the nature of doing this. I mean, when you have 7,000 pages and 3,000 content editors, the fact that we are at 80% coverage right now is a miracle, in my opinion. But nonetheless,
yeah.
Project Summit, that work is still continuing. We've had 7, I think that's right number I wrote in there, 7 projects that have applied. We're closing that applications on Sunday, and then we'll be picking the projects and notifying them next week. We have been giving project leaders quite a bit of notice on this. So if they choose not to apply, it's not for the lack of being made aware. We have been sending them emails. We're actually sent no less than 5 actually regarding that opportunity. Planning for both the global conferences in the US is ongoing. That's just kind of a repeat of that. The project team for Dublin's been selected, and they have already started to meet. The program team for San Francisco will be closing this week. The microsites are online, but registration is not. We'll be in the process of doing that. Staff has actually got an agreement on the table for Berlin 2021, which is the yet further out next year. There's a board resolution on the call today to talk about that briefly. As you know, Upset California is kicking off. Is that today, Richard, or tomorrow? It's actually already started. That event actually did really, really well on sponsorships, which you can read about there. And then, there's a lot of things here about policy work I'm working on and other things, but that's kind of the top level. Any quick questions?
I had a couple of questions with regards to the site migration. So right now we are, have you guys started tagging like the 404 errors to see if you're getting a lot of errors on the site versus just the hits on the traffic?
Yes, we are.
When you can see that there's a problem there.
Harold's on the call. Harold, would you give us a 30-second update on 404s if there's something?
Yes, we have the SEO core looking at the 404s, and they just gave me a list of them this morning. It's a short list, so we're pretty good here.
Okay, so you're tagging them at least, so you can tell like when a 404.
Monitoring and addressing.
Okay. Okay, there was something else that caught my eye, but just a little bit higher up. So Travis is on sort of the AppSec California group for, San Francisco rather, for the event next year. Well, this year rather now.
I'd have to go dive in and look at the applications thus far. The San Francisco team has it closed. Emily's on the call. Emily, that closes this week sometime, doesn't it? The applications for San Francisco?
Sorry, I was on mute. No, it actually closes at the end of this month, so 2 weeks.
Okay, 2 weeks.
The call for papers, it will be for Dublin will be open on Monday. The team is actually still on our call right now, making sure those submission guidelines are ready to go. And we have a follow-up call on Thursday to make sure that we're 100% ready.
Emily, would you mind sharing the list of people within the
Dublin team?
The Dublin
Yeah,
team,
absolutely.
and also the call details, if you wouldn't mind.
The submission guidelines is that what you're asking for, or the timeline?
No, so so a list of the people that are on the committee, and also the call details, so I can maybe join.
Oh, yes, I can add. Would it be good just to add everyone to the group? Is that how you guys typically work, or what would you like?
Well, I guess myself and Martin have been part of the AppSec EU, formerly known as AppSec EU, for the last probably 5 or 6 years. So just to make sure that it's consistent, I guess.
Yeah, I can share all of that with anyone who is interested in seeing it. Mike, you and I can talk about the best way to do that, whether it's adding the board or what you want me to do.
Okay.
Okay, aside from that, great job on the site migration. I know that there's a few follow-ups. I provided some feedback also on what we can invest in further in the future. You've mentioned something about event tooling. Could you elaborate on that, Mike?
Yeah, that's a project that's been specified. It's on the staff projects page in terms of features. Our schedule is a little uncertain at this point, and that'll be something that we'll dive into here in the next couple of weeks. We want to kind of squash any final bugs on membership and donations. But just a reminder to the board, there were 3 kind of major, if you will, not really that major, but custom development that we did. We did one for donations, we did one for membership, and the third is events. And we haven't, and then we've done the specification work. We've had some early meetings with the developer, but we don't currently have an accurate timeline. We're pushing very, very hard because, obviously we want to launch it. I mean, this is kind of a critical path item for the Dublin launch. We have already started exploring alternative backup plans if necessary, but at this point, we're still planning to have our own events tool for doing Dublin registration.
Okay. On a personal note, I tried to use the Salesforce site to update my membership, and I ended up using the new site to purchase a lifetime membership, so forth.
Good.
And it was a much more streamlined process, which was great.
Yeah, thank you. It is actually it's better on a lot of respects. So thank you. All right. Well, anyway, that's kind of the top line. If anyone has any questions, obviously feel free to reach out to me. I'll be less responsive this week than normal, but I'll get to it eventually.
Thank you. I've already raised a couple of issues as well on GitHub for the site.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so I guess the next is the old business, so approval of 2020 operating plan.
Well, one second there. We haven't covered any of the financials. Is that an issue, Mike? Is it because Tom couldn't attend, or?
Well, this is another one of those months where the third Tuesday happens rather early usually financials are done around the 22nd and 23rd, so that's why it's not available yet. I know Tom's at an offsite today, a company-wide virtual event that I'm supposed to be at, which I'm not. So it's not available today. He's going to send financials as soon as they're available, and I'll make sure to forward them onto the board. But right now, they're not available at this point.
Okay.
Hey, Mike, this is Richard. In the future, can we make sure that the financials are discussed at the meetings, and if there is something that is preventing that conflicting, then we can discuss possibly changing the meeting, because this is important, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, there was one just other note on this because 2019 is an audited year. So I wanted to also touch base with Mike if there are any other action items for that to complete it before we're ready for audit.
not at this point. I know Tom has already instructed me that the December close is going to take longer than normal, and he'll leave the year open, quote unquote, as they clean things up. Because once you close it, you can't go back in and fix it for your audit year. But he knows we're supposed to have preliminary, financials, around the 20th of the month. It's just a matter of they're not prepared this time. So, I mean, it's just the nature of how things work. So, but I'm taking Richard's note now. But we need to figure out how to do something preliminary at least.
Okay.
I understand.
I mean, worst case, we can move it to another week within the month. So just shift the meeting.
I think just given the nature of our meetings, I think it's best for us to stick to this particular third Tuesday of the month and find some way to get even on those months when we're 2 days off, off on this. We really should push the finance team to get us at least something that's preliminary. It's better to have preliminary now than push this out a week and then try to figure out the rescheduling and everything.
Everybody, sorry for being late.
You're pretty low, Martin.
Oh yeah, for this update, we talked about it, and he said
it's still.
Sorry for that.
We can't hear you, Martin. Sorry.
It's very mumbly.
Okay, fair enough.
Sorry, Mike, you were saying before.
No, I'm taking the action item that I'll work with Tom to get us preliminary financials at every board meeting, regardless of the fact that it might be not as final as it should be.
Okay, cool. Do we want to wait for a minute? No. He doesn't look happy.
Let's continue. When Martin's ready, he can jump in.
Yeah, sure. So I guess without the financials, then it moves on to the old business. I wasn't here at the December meeting, so I don't know whether the operating plan, the 2020 budget, have you gone through them already? Were there questions?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So just come back to the financial plan. So we talked about it with Tom the problem is some months, the third Tuesday of the month comes early, and there are problems, but he said he prefers to keep the third Tuesday per month.
Okay.
Yeah, cool.
So to answer your question on, so the operating plan was actually initially not presented per se, but it was on new business for the November as well as old business on the December meeting. I know that really the only comments I've received from either the community or from the board members is really only the language around one item in the operating plan as it relates to chapter operations, and more specifically that there's language in the operating plan to follow through on the October 2015 board resolution around chapter balances at some point this coming year. And Richard had some objection to that. If it's necessary to get it approved, I'd be willing to remove that one item and add it back later. But right now, it's kind of a little scary that we're kind of operating without a plan at this point because we have yet to approve it.
Is that OWASP 10 still in there in the goals? Can you see that, please?
The goals have been updated. So actually, yeah, I did make those changes. There was the one, I'm sorry, Martin, you are correct. There was comments live during the call that people did not want to have one of the goals be to launch the top 10 at a certain date, that the goal in the operating plan should be to support the team when it's available in that time frame. And so that's actually been updated.
Yeah, that came up from Andrew Vanderstock.
It's in general, as always, the projects are independent. We can ask them, we can support them, but it's not a staff item.
Understood. The idea is the staff item is to promote it. So once it's available, we'd want to make a big deal about it. I think it's a big opportunity for us. There was also just, this is reminding me, there was another piece of feedback on the goals that around the percentage increase in satisfaction and a couple of those small items. And I did modify the operating plan following the meeting. So those should be updated in the live
There-
version that's currently on the
There are
website.
two items. There's something I noticed quite in the bottom, which is you have an online training and certificate program.
Yes.
I think the training and the educational part, I think most of us won't have an issue part. I think we just need some better clarification on certificates, because we've had some challenges with that in the past.
So just to cut in, so I don't think now is the time for discussions. So as it's gone on to 2 months already, I think that there should be a mail thread, there should be discussions, and that it should be up for vote the next board meeting, as there still appears to be people saying that there's things that need to change or potentially change. So there's an open action item at that point, and Dawn, if you could take it down, that all board members are to review this and provide input to it, and that the final version should be ready for the February board meeting.
I just want to point out that this particular point is talking about exploring it, right? Not actually implementing anything.
That's correct.
So I think that as it stands, I'm happy with what it is. And Owen, you're right. We need to talk about it further as a board.
Yeah, and maybe we can bring it up when we arrange if we're having a 4-hour call or 2-hour call or whatever, we can.
Yeah, that would work.
We can potentially talk through it, but before that, all board members will need to be ready and have feedback, rather than spending too long discussing things that we could have already discussed via email.
Agreed. But the staff intend to provide us with some information as to what it would look like, right? So this is as an action for staff, as it's stated here in the plan. I'm happy with what they plan to do, as long as it remains as it's in the plan.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments? I don't want to dwell too much on the semantics in the actual content, because
yes, there is. Yes, I mentioned this at the last meeting, and it was discussed at an executive session that was open just to board members, and it was also discussed in Las Vegas face-to-face on the 2-day board meeting. And it's a big issue that still is not being done the proper way. We all ran to become board members, and we're very sensitive to the feedback we receive from the community that they all want more transparency. Well, as part of transparency, if we're making a change that has a large effect on projects or chapters or the community as a whole, we need to respect that community and run those changes by them, not just on these calls, which were attended by perhaps a handful of other people, but in an email campaign or in some other fashion on our website that talks about these substantial changes. When you're talking about taking away the budget from all chapters, that is significant. In Las Vegas, the board discussed this, and it reached a conclusion that for the time being, we will not do that to a certain bunch of successful chapters. We did not get into the details of how to operationalize that, how to decide what is considered to be a successful, mature chapter. But we would leave those budgets intact for those chapters to manage. That is in conflict with the statement that you have in here under chapters, which says move towards taking away the budget from all chapters. And so this is something that needs community input. We need to understand that these many chapters have been very successful running, and there really is not a good reason to steal the money from the chapters. I don't need to go into the details of, yes, it's all OWASP money. There aren't specific books for chapters, but in reality, we all know that chapters have a budget that is been respected for 10 years, and that the chapters spend the money appropriately. If there is an issue with a certain expense that's submitted, of course, that should be evaluated, and if it's an abuse of of the chapter prerogative, then it should be rejected and the chapter should be discussed. It should be discussed. Now, again, this is talking about the overall structure of OWASP worldwide. So it needs to be put out there. You can't just put it in a plan here and say, let's approve it here on this call. It's got to be put out because it affects a lot of chapters. All right. Now,
yeah, and I guess the first point, first point there was to the 2015 board motion that was around the chapters submitting a budget, which is probably something that we should revisit and go back to and ask the chapters to submit a budget and actually think about their expenses, because then we can plan how much more money we need to add to the chapter budget going forward. And I guess it's the chapters helping us to know where we can focus our money on.
Yes,
yeah, no, this was discussed in Vegas. I agree. I'm happy to follow whatever we all decide, but we still have to, again, if we want to make changes that affect a large portion of the community, we've got to put it out there for the community to give feedback. Similar to the website, we saw all the feedback coming from the website. People in this community are very passionate. This isn't, you know, a corporate America structure. This is a community of passionate people who all have opinions. Of course, there are outliers, right? It's a sine curve. You're going to have outliers on both ends, and you're going to have the majority. So let's respect it. Let's do this process appropriately, as we all promised. And that's all I'm saying. So, you know, I think this needs further discussion.
Yeah. Richard, if I may put in that, yes, it was discussed, and what Owen said, it has been officially approved by the board prior to 2015. The problem is that it has never been, it has been tried but never fully executed. So yes, I agree that when we would enforce it again, we have to talk about it. About your chapter classification on the successful, less successful, I thought there was an action item from the last face-to-face meeting actually about that. So yes, it has to be formalized. Right. And definitely for the transparency, I'm really forward. And I think there was one thing that we talked also to, and I'll just say coming by the town hall meetings was also one point that everything major change should be discussed there, and we're looking for community feedback. Yes.
Yeah, right. Just to add just a note on two of them, because I was trying to send an email out on this, and I thought it's best that we discuss this first, is that you need to, like Richard said, to engage the community to get their feedback, either through the email, reaching them out directly, and also things like Slack, but to make sure that their feedback is provided. The other thing that I've noticed on some of those pages is that it will be difficult unless, Mike, you share also the feedback page. It sort of goes into a form that's a black hole as opposed to Google Docs or elsewhere. But the recommendation would be that it's put out, the community provide feedback that's collected, consolidated, the board reviews, has a discussion, and then votes on it. So that on the language, just so that just to put a point there, just like the training one, it would be good to emphasize that this is a direction versus having it that open-ended, and then actually get into the details, into the policies. But the policies, I'd imagine, take a little bit longer once we actually collect both the board to review and also for the community to provide feedback into it as well.
So Mike, how do you feel about that? Are you okay to take this, socialize it with the community, collect feedback, and we can work on it or hopefully have it back by the next board meeting in February?
Yeah, that was my intent originally. Apologies, I'm a little bit behind on that, but I wanted, as we discussed before, to mention it in the board meeting before we do that. So I'm happy to take that on and share both documents that were put together and show the community various options, and then bring.
You changed your name, Sharif.
Sorry?
I asked the question to Mike, but
Oh, sorry. Okay.
just
Yeah,
from
I
a
think
staff
that,
perspective.
I mean, I think it's, well, the document currently exists in GitHub, which has an issues system, so it's very easy for people to find feedback directly on GitHub. The document's been available on the current website since November. So I understand this desire to be more proactive. I'll have to put together a plan, but I've documented that, the objectives is to make it public. And it sounds like there's also further direction from the board to engage the community, which is different than making it available, but to actually hammer them.
So I guess the fact that it's on GitHub now, Mike, improves the potential for feedback.
Well,
so
in some ways it's better, some ways it's worse. But it was on the wiki last year, so I did the same thing in February of 2019 with the operating plan, and it was available on the wiki for the entire year. So I understand. So I understand we need to just engage the community with a way to feedback.
Ideally, what you want is a way to publish it someplace where people can leave comments that everyone can see. That's
they can on get the way that it's publicized now. So it needs to be shared.
But
so just so everybody, there's technically 21 minutes left of the board meeting. If we're not going to get into actually voting for this operating plan at this point in time, everything else is just working out how to do things. So maybe we can either discuss it in the 4-hour meeting or offline via email.
One more aspect of that, Mike, I emailed you yesterday a document Sharif and I had come up with, 2 documents actually, and I sent it to the whole board as well. One is the tiered chapter structure and how to operationalize it. It indicated criteria for how you determine what is a mature chapter, as far as budget, whether to have a budget or not. And the other document is fair and reasonable expenses. And some of it aligns with yours, Mike. Others, there are differences. So let's push all 3 of those, yours and those 2 documents, out there when you socialize it. Thanks a lot.
Okay, so the next board item is the approval of the 2020 budget. Has everybody had a chance to review, and are you happy with voting?
I had one question on that, Mike. Do you have any funding there for additional support with regards to community engagement?
Not particularly, no.
Okay.
Right now, most of the community, there's not really a line item for what exactly are you thinking? Because there may be someplace that I may not know that it would be.
Yeah, so it's one of the things that we talked about previously, sort of like a community manager or activities to basically encourage, to improve the participation of the community, but also help support them. For some,
you mean a staffing request, as in like the budget for a new hire as a community manager, rather than
either that or
actually budget for people to ask for money?
Either headcount or services that can actually improve.
There is. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there is a slight increase in staffing costs, with the assumption that just like we've done this previous year, that we had a couple of open positions available, and when good people kind of showed up, that we kind of moved it around. And in the executive session of the board, I could tell you more about staffing, but there is some increased funding in the budget for 2020 to accommodate some of that, of what you're describing.
Okay. Cool. So I guess the motion is to approve the 2020 draft budget.
I second it.
Can I have a second? Perfect. So in order of who I see first, Grant.
Approve.
Sharif.
Approve.
Martin.
Approve.
Richard.
Approved.
Gary.
I'm still confused. This isn't a budget. It's a list of numbers. I'll abstain.
And I approve. So then this is passed.
Owen?
Yep.
Dawn, so this is not, the budget hasn't been approved, the draft budget has been approved? I want the right wording.
It is the budget.
Well,
I called it draft because
yeah,
we
it's the
haven't
budget.
approved it.
Yeah. So
It's the-
it'll be the 2020 budget.
Okay.
For
thank
example,
you.
that doesn't show what we're spending on staff or other things. I'm just confused.
Oh yeah, it is. It does by buckets. When you start scrolling down on expenses, keep going on.
Here,
Yeah, you
here's the
have a
staffing.
highlight staffing. It's in bigger buckets because for some measure of privacy, but it does put it into G&A programs, and programs, by the way, is most of the stuff that we do, and then fundraising and development, which is the time that staff spends on membership and doing sponsorship work.
Okay, thanks. I missed that.
Right,
Do
so
you wish to change your vote?
If any board member would like to have more detail, I can provide some of it. So please just reach out to me directly.
okay, so it's passed based on the vote that we had.
Yeah.
Gary, you abstained, but
No, I'm still happy to abstain.
passed that. Yeah, fine. I'm losing everything. Okay, the next line item is update the mission statement. So are we in a position to update it now? Is everybody happy to vote on this?
I still don't like. I still don't like the wording. I think the change mission statement should be bigger and more community reflective. I understand that the old one is there for a while, and the wording might be not optimal. Still upset, but there were some suggestions. They are not incorporated in this word.
Well,
So
you may want to read below, Martin. It's where it says to. So you see the from is the
yes,
old
I
one.
understand that.
Okay.
So I said I understand the from version is outdated and maybe a bit cumbersome, but I don't like the. I don't think the to version is fully what reflecting the comments we had in the past. For example, for developers and technologists, it's not the only one we focus on wider. I'm happy that it says software security, but I think that we changed the mission statement should be also a community reflection. So I'm not happy with the wording yet.
I'd also like to take the wording of this and have it as part of the 4-hour discussion that the board is going to do. I agree with Martin. We need to work on this a little bit.
Okay, so let's have this as a board action point for the 4-hour meeting that we're going to have to reword this. But I guess the chunk of the work needs to be done prior to that meeting, so that we just have to discuss it rather than actually creating it.
Can I just confirm that the board should be creating this? I understand giving an eye over and approving.
I think a draft, but I think that we need community support for rewording it.
I think what Martin is trying to achieve is the community is more involved in wording what our mission is, and I agree with that sentiment. And I think that we should take the opportunity to try and do that.
Yep. So if somebody can take the action item to create a Google Doc and copy and paste this item in and share it with the rest of the board. Somebody want to take that as a working document?
Share with the rest of the board or share with the rest of the community?
The rest of the board to update it to what we feel like it should be, and then we should share it with the community for input.
Okay, I can set it up now.
Okay, perfect. So there's 3 items on the new business. So officer elections. So in an email thread last night, we discussed that we needed to discuss with the new board members the roles, what they entail, and to have a discussion before we vote for the officers within this current board. Is everybody happy with doing that and waiting?
So we wait until the 4-hour meeting, essentially.
Yeah, so we have to have the 4-hour meeting, and then the roles that we discuss within that, we'll have a public vote in the February board meeting. Either that, or we can vote via email as well.
Okay.
Yeah, just one minor modification. And yes, Owen, I agree with you. But we tried to schedule a 4-hour meeting, but out of respect for Vandana's time, due to the time difference, I think we're going to split that into two-hour meetings. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, it's more to respect Richard's time because he's further away than Vandana.
Well, whatever. Yes. Thank you very much. I stand correct.
Sorry, Richard. So would you mind changing your Zoom if you haven't done it already to so that we can maybe have two-hour meetings then?
Yes.
And the board will, the rest of us will vote.
Absolutely.
To get it done as soon as possible. Cool.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. The next item is motion to modify treatment of restricted gifts. Restricted gifts are subject to 15% administration and processing discount. Unspent restricted gift balances become unrestricted at the end of each calendar year. Mike, would you like to, I guess this is your point. Still here? Did we lose Mike?
I think so. I don't see him on. I can ping him real quick.
While he's, while we've lost him, maybe for the motion to authorize executive director exercising all necessary due diligence and care as individually authorized to obligate the funds of the OWASP Foundation to execute agreements reflecting those obligations and to further delegate the authority as deemed appropriate for those for the purpose of organizing and hosting Global AppSec in Berlin. So yeah, so I guess so the third motion is while Mike's away is basically to host.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, cool. I'll just finish this one because I think it's quicker than the others. So yeah, sure. The third motion is to host a Global AppSec conference in June 10, 2021 in Berlin.
I just wonder, was it still the location? Is it still the one we wanted to go for? I thought there was some problem, I recall, for 2021 in Berlin.
So, hi, this is Emily. I'll take that since Mike's not on. The issue with the Berlin property is that we would have to change the pattern of the conference so that it would take place Monday through Thursday rather than Monday through Friday. What Mike and I have done is
we lose Emily as well.
No, I can hear.
Oh, I can hear Emily. Yeah. Can you not?
Yeah, I can.
I can hear her.
We lost Sharif.
Hello?
You can't hear me?
Lost Sharif. No, we can all hear you. Sharif can't.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Sharif just cut out. Sorry, Emily, continue if you want to go ahead.
No, that's fine. So what Mike and I have done is come up with a draft budget to make sure that the P&L still makes sense based on only having 2 days of training. So we would have training Monday, Tuesday, then the conference would be Wednesday, Thursday.
Why is that?
Because the hotel does not have availability for us on Friday.
There's only one option for the next year?
Unfortunately, the two properties that we cited, the Munich property does not make sense for us financially. Berlin is much closer to what we can, what makes sense.
And is there a possibility to have Sunday as a starting date?
There is a possibility to have Sunday.
Okay.
Yes.
Do we know from the last few European conferences how many attendees we had of 3-day training, and is this really a factor?
Off the top of my head, I don't have it, but it has not been many. In Amsterdam, it was something like 15. So we have picked up more rooms on that Monday and Tuesday so that we can hold more trainings so that we can get more people in the door.
Yeah, I guess like having the option for Sunday would be ideal, given the fact that we don't know what kind of training is going to be submitted. Having the option for having a 3-day training would be ideal, without having to overcommit on the rooms.
Let's see a breakdown of the cost of the room versus you know, filling it with 15 people as an example and see how that looks.
Yeah, like to be honest, Mario Heidrich is based in Berlin, and he'd more than likely submit his training for that conference, and he gets about 25 plus people at his training. That's a 3-day training, so and it's been well attended for the last number of years. Since I think Belfast, or it was before. He was in Rome actually. So he started in Rome, and every year he's had over 25 people in his training. So we can fill the rooms. We just need to have the right training.
Yeah.
And you think people will attend on a Sunday?
Yeah, I think that, I don't think it's a problem, because they could potentially go over on a Saturday, spend some time in Berlin or just surrounding area, and then do their conference. It's probably easier coming home on a Friday as well. So I guess I'm happy to support this motion, given the fact as long as we can focus on getting some rooms on the Sunday to start the conference on the Sunday.
I can second it.
Yeah, if you look at the perspective of an attendee and work, they'll be actually happy they can justify a Saturday night stay over.
Yeah. And there's good flights to Berlin. So yeah. So the motion to approve Mike, the executive director, to proceed with the Global AppSec in Berlin, June 10th, 2021. At a total expense that does not exceed 565,000 euros, is the motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second. So Martin,
Is that
second.
Martin who seconded it? I couldn't hear.
Martin.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going by the people that I see first. So Martin, you're actually the first.
Yes, I approve.
Gary.
Approve.
Grant.
Approve.
Grant. Sharif. Sharif, you're on YouTube here.
Sorry. Approve.
Richard, are you still here?
Jawohl.
I think. Richard?
Yeah, it was a yes.
Jawohl.
All right. All right, I didn't hear.
It was a German yes.
Okay. Just say yeah. And Vandana is actually on the call now, but I actually don't know how to deal with that.
Yeah, ask her.
Yeah, Vandana, would you like to cast your vote?
Sure. Yes. I cast my vote as yes.
Perfect. And mine, I say yes.
The only
Perfect.
thing,
So
only remark I have is a change like Emily, that to change the days of a conference. I think it's operational, but it's an impact that should be the board and the committee should be notified earlier, and not when we decide about it. I understand the problems with implementation, but I think it's a big change in the setup. So that I would like to hear that earlier.
Okay.
cool. So Mike, the other motion while you were got kicked out was a motion to modify the treatment of restricted gifts that are subject to 15% administration and processing discount. Unspent restricted gift balances become unrestricted at the end of each calendar year. Are you back online? We lost him again. No, we lost him.
All right, this is Richard. I'd like to apologize. I could not figure out a way to add agenda items as we had before with the wiki. But I just want to mention a very important item. We don't have to discuss it now if there's no time. But 2 weeks ago, I emailed the entire board about establishing an outreach committee that Spiros is heading up. I've got 2 board members who approved. I have not heard from any of the others. So can you guys please review the email? They followed committees 2.0 to the letter. They're ready to go. And this is very important. As you know, the various committees would support us and the foundation extremely well, get the community involved. And so I urge you all respond to my email about that. And let's get at least our first committee officially going. There were others working on others, and I didn't want to take any more time, but please do that. Thank you, sir.
Cool. And yep, sorry, I was away. I need to catch up on email, so I'll reply this evening.
I think we can cast it by either a vote if any people, if anybody has a consideration, or otherwise we can do it by a mail vote, electronic vote.
Yeah, I guess by committee 2.0, there's so the board are to discuss it via email and then invite the committee people on to the next board call for discussions if we have any questions. Sorry, Spiros and maybe Bjorn, if you're or anybody else that are on that we're expecting to do that today. Mike, we lost you again.
Can you hear me now? I've been able to join a couple times.
We can hear you.
Yeah, no, it's just every time I go to you to talk about this
I know, when I drop.
You drop, yeah. So, do you want to leave it? Or?
Yeah, let me give you a quick overview of what option 2 is. Can you still hear me? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, there's a big echo. Mike, I think we're losing you. Your signal's pretty bad.
Oh, I was not option 2. Yeah, I try to turn it off.
Okay.
The motion number 2.
No.
I'm still here.
Yeah, but you keep on going all blurry, which is weird.
All right, let me give this one last try.
No, you still sound like you're underwater.
The motion that I proposed, number 2, clean up a little bit of language around restrict.
Oh, yeah, we lost him again. I think I get what he was saying on the.
Yeah, we kind of need to wait for him. There's 1 minute left. There's 2 motions. The motion 2 and motion number 4, the signatory policy version. We kind of need him to do it. Do we want to park this and do it via email, or try and wait for him to come back on?
I think we can.
You wouldn't get it done in a minute anyway.
Yeah.
Well, the meeting's for an hour and 20 minutes, but if you guys got to go, fair enough. But I think this is a quick one if he's on the phone.
I am now here. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, Mike. Yeah. There you go.
I called it.
Mike, just go.
Go. Correct?
Yep. Just go for it. Talk us through.
All right. Okay, the number 2 motion was to help us deal with restricted giving. We currently have, as we know, that you have to give more than $1,000 restricted gift. There is some ambiguity in our policies around how we deal with that. There is some language, one place that says something and some language that says something else another place. Currently, I'm not sure who approved it, but there's something on the wiki that said 90% of the money goes to whoever it's getting restricted to, 10% goes to the foundation. I've changed that in this motion is for the board to change it to 15%. It's the cost of doing the transaction because it takes us 3% to take a credit card or a little bit more. The other thing that is substantive in this motion is at the end of every calendar year, any restricted gifts that have not been spent will become unrestricted. It's still money that the foundation has, and by the way, it also can be spent on its original intent, but from an accounting point of view, it would become unrestricted. I did mention to a couple of you that this is standard practice in nonprofits, is to kind of time bomb restricted gifts, simply to kind of make sure that we're always in compliance with the restricted giving requirements and that we don't leave any loose ends. And that's why this is written this way. So it would be to restrict is to basically, there's 15% admin and processing fee. In other words, so if you give us money, it's discounted by 15% for that project or chapter. And then at the end of the calendar year, it would be, if it's not been spent for its restricted use, it would become unrestricted. And I'll make one last comment before there's discussion. There's kind of, when I originally thought of this policy about unrestricting it, the more natural place to go would be to make it be 1 year after the money was given. The challenge I have with that is that it becomes even more of an accounting nightmare to make sure that on, March 23rd of next year, this one gift now gets moved out. It's just easier just to do it at one set time, and that would be at the end of the calendar year.
Yeah, I think, well, the only point I guess I have on this is somebody does it on a December and you're doing it or midway through the year, I guess. Are you doing it on that December or the end of that calendar year or the following calendar year?
The way this resolution is written is that it would be at the end of each calendar year. So if you gave money on the 30th of December, that money would be restricted to that project for only 2 days. But it doesn't mean that the money can't be spent in that way or any of that kind of stuff. It just means it would not be restricted to be used in that way.
Could you maybe reword it to the end of the calendar year, 1 year from the donation date?
But it's
We're
also
trying to make the accounting as simple as possible.
Yeah.
That would introduce the complications. And surely we can just ask if you want to give that donation, give it on the 1st of Jan. Wait 2 days to donate.
Yeah.
The question would be how much problem is it to have a time limit in it, like not younger than, or at least.
What was the question?
How much problem would it be? I understand that the 1 year to measure the time, but if we say if given before 31st of October, for example, or is it still a problem?
Yeah, we could add that language.
Yeah, you just bulk them. Let's say so. Then they are not last day donations that are not restricted. But as you said, is the lift the restriction? Is that in line with the law in the US because of restricted gifts?
Well, I'm saying it's not the law, it's best practices. Now, the law in the United States for a 501c3 is that if and this, I'll just give a generic example. If I have a charity, which is a 501c3, and I give them $10, and I tell them they must spend that $10 on staples, that organization can never spend any less than $10 on staples. So most nonprofits in the United States have a system in place that a restricted gift, if it is accepted, and by the way, most nonprofits will not take a $10 gift for staples. That's restricted because they don't want to account for that and keep track of it. But what they normally would do is they'd have time bomb's a little bit of a crash term, but the idea would be is that there would be a limit. So it'd be, okay, I'm restricting my gift for $10 for staples, but at some point, if we don't spend $10 on staples, the remaining balance would then be moved to an unrestricted fund. So therefore, if you only spend $9.25 on staples, in this particular example, for perpetuity, the organization would have to maintain a balance of 75 cents for staples until they ever use it. And it's a very bad and complicated process, which exposes you to mistakes, which exposes you to audits, which exposes you to losing your 501c status. So the idea here is to make it simple. So if we are going to allow restricted gifts, the board's already decided that we've kind of made it so there's kind of a floor, so at least it's worth keeping track of. And the idea here is that it further closes that loop to make it simple. Again, it doesn't mean the gifts are not being used for the purpose it was given. It just means that they are no longer restricted for that purpose.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
I have.
So with this out of the way, would you then be comfortable taking funds for various projects as restricted gifts for the foundation?
Over a certain price, yeah, I think that's the form.
Well, actually, the board 2 months ago or 3 months ago voted on we only take restricted gifts if they're more than $1,000.
Yeah.
Currently, if someone gives us $50, there's no way today on our new website to give us $50 donation and say that it's going to have to be spent on the top 10 list. Yeah. That's not possible.
Hey,
and that was a board resolution passed several months ago.
Folks, for the sake of time, this seems pretty straightforward to me. We're going on.
Richard Vandana was next.
Set the.
Vandana had a question. Richard.
All right, go ahead.
So the question is, I agree with it that for 1 year, if we want to keep the restricted gifts, it's fine. But if it's calendar year, I am sure people will raise questions. It has to be 1 year. We can at least maintain the rate that you have to spend in 2 days, not just 2 days, but the whole year. I agree that there is a proper policy for it, but if we keep it for the whole year rather than just the calendar year, that makes more sense, because no project would be able to spend in 2 days. And if the money goes away and somebody has donated, they will raise concerns over it.
It doesn't mean that money goes away. It's just it lifts the restriction. So
Right.
when
The other point that Mike pointed out, and Grant as well, is that you can recommend that the team place the funds on the other side. So they wait 2 days for 2021, for example, and then place the funds in 2021, if it's that close, or wait 2 months or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I guess it's just smart bookkeeping when something like that's coming in, just ask them to delay. Yeah, I guess
this is simply about trying to make a complicated thing simpler, right?
Yeah.
We're dealing with a complication. Somebody wants to give the foundation money, but they want it to be specific to something else. That's a complication to donation process. We're trying to make that complication available to our people who are donating to us, but at the same time, we want to keep it as simple as possible for the foundation and everybody involved. So I'm happy to second that motion.
Okay, I just need to make the motion. Sorry.
Sorry,
so motion to
Richard not have a point?
You wanted to
Right,
speak
yes,
things
Richard, you had a point.
I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah. So the motion to modify treatment of restricted gifts. Restricted gifts are subject to 50% administration and processing discount. So unspent restricted gift balances become unrestricted at the end of each calendar year. Can I get a second?
I second it.
Yeah.
Okay, so Martin seconds it. So going by the list of people I see, Grant.
Approved.
Gary.
Who said this would be a quick one? Approved.
Martin.
Approved.
Shreef.
Approved.
Bandana.
Approved.
Richard.
Approved.
And I approve. So all 7 board members have approved. Perfect. So I guess the last thing that's on the agenda for today is the signatory version 2. Personally, I would like to keep this for discussion during a 4-hour meeting. But as long as if everybody's happy to go through it, there's a motion to approve the signatory policy version 2.
Yeah, I need background on this. I wasn't sure of the context here.
So do we want to keep it for discussion with ourselves, or
keep it for the 4-hour meetings, in my opinion?
Yes,
yeah,
I think we have to.
Yeah, that's fine. So we'll table that. And there was just a comments and announcements and other business. Mike, do you want to staff as
no? Yeah, when I originally put together the agenda, I put these items for approval, and that was, while I think they're fairly harmless in some of the changes, I got some pushback that we should have a broader discussion. So I just am making an announcement that staff's been working on a variety of policy documents. When possible, the board would be encouraged to take a look at some of them. There's a donation policy. There is an expense reimbursement policy that I'll just given the prior conversation, there's no mention in the expense reimbursement policy to the chapter balances topic. It's just a matter of what we would approve and not approve organizational wide, and the processes behind that. And the last one is around membership. I will make a comment that the membership policy does have language around honorary membership, which is a very big change. And so please take some time to take a look at that. I'll make one last comment to the board just so you hear it. Staff has suspended approving honorary memberships after some review of bylaws and some of our policies. It's become clear to me that staff does not have the authority to grant honorary memberships. So at some future date, we want to either take in consideration Ofer's suggestion is that the board would do that on an occasional basis, once a year, or we would have to at some point create a resolution that would delegate that authority to the staff, because currently staff is technically not authorized to grant any memberships, nor are any members granted the authority to provide memberships to other people.
Okay, so this again addresses an issue of community involvement and transparency, because for many years, chapter leaders and project leaders have been granted honorary membership. So if you want to make a change like this, regardless of what you feel you discovered in the policy, this needs to be shared with the community. You can't just shut a door when people are used to walking in it. So this is very important. You know, again, we have a passionate community. Let's be respectful.
I definitely agree that that should be it. But on the other side, honorable membership, if there's a flaw in the procedure that has been taken, we have to consider it and move fast to see if it's still valid, and then be fast in setting out the new guidelines.
I think Mike just wants us to find a way to do it properly.
And honorable membership, only what it gives you is the free access to the $50 discount to conferences, right? And the ability to vote.
I think that's not, yeah, that's, in my opinion, Martin, some of those benefits are not as consequential. We currently have no policy regarding leadership and membership. Anyone can be a leader of a project or a chapter and not be a member of the foundation.
Yep.
So that's a separate issue that I know Ofer had just, he had talked about that, and that's more of a membership issue. Well, actually, that's more of a leader issue than it is membership. What we discovered in the bylaws is only the board can grant memberships. And so as someone pointed out, and I think it was Grant, and you're absolutely correct, yes, we discovered this issue within the last several weeks. I wrote the membership policy according to how we should be doing it, which is why I'd like for the board to review it, because I do want to resolve this issue that we're kind of out of compliance when it comes to honorary membership. So right now, staff is not processing them. We are still collecting honorary membership applications, which must be done annually by the people that want to have honorary memberships. It's just we're not approving them at this very moment. We have a backlog of about 14 of them as of today. It's my recollection.
Can you send those to the board, please?
What, do you want to get the application for honorary membership?
I think it should be good.
Well, I think they're on this page for the meeting. So
no, actually, yeah, the honorary members. I'd have to send those to you. If the board would like to have the docket of outstanding honorary memberships, we can provide that.
Okay. It's even just an understanding of the bylaws that were being infringed or whatever they got there. But this sounds like a preamble to the discussion we are going to have in the 4-hour meeting. So that's not waste of time now.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes.
So I guess unless there's any other comments, we can adjourn the meeting.
I just wanted to officially welcome Vandana and Grant to their first meeting as global board members. We're delighted you guys have joined us.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for not making this a boring, easy one.
Cool. Welcome aboard, everybody.
Pun intended.
Perfect. So Richard's going to, at the end of this, Richard's going to resend his link so that he gets so that we can arrange the 4-hour meeting. So maybe in 2-hour slots.
As we're all sitting here, I'm playing with my doodle now.
Yeah, cool. I forgot what it was called. That's why I didn't say doodle. Perfect. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and staff as well.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Recording now.
Hello?